Well, hello everybody out there in Atlanta. This is Chris from HHN.com, another exciting episode of Topher's Log. Now, if you don't know what Topher's Log is, you can go back, you can watch the first couple episodes. We're up to like episode 8 or something like that at this point. We started this back in January. It's just me going a little bit old school and just getting on camera and talking a little bit about the rumors and speculation and chatter that people are talking about all across the interwebs about Halloween Horror Nights 29. Now, this week actually there was a flurry of speculation and chatter that was going on all over the internet about a bunch of things, but there's something that I wanted to address. So one particular thing that I wanted to address that came up, that comes up all the time, and that is a little author by the name of H.P. Lovecraft. Now, this is one of those properties that fans have wanted to come to the event for a long time. It's almost like a Stephen King situation. Yes, they are both authors. Both authors do not make the same, but nevertheless, it is kind of in a similar vein where fans want a Stephen King house and they want something Lovecraftian in nature. We have not had a straight up Lovecraft house, but we have had Lovecraft inspired houses as recently as last year. Seeds of Extinction, while not a direct adaptation of a Lovecraft story or novel, was inspired by a Lovecraft story. The name of the story at this point escapes me, but you can go back, you can watch the My Talking Head episode when Seeds of Extinction was announced last year, and I talked a little bit about the story that the house sort of took inspiration from. As well as the house took it, it didn't just take inspiration from the Lovecraft story, it took inspiration from other things as well. But the Lovecraft story that in question was very similar. There was a lot of similarities to that story that were in Seeds of Extinction. It's funny because, like, I know that there are a lot of people behind the scenes who are fans of H.P. Lovecraft, so it's kind of weird that Lovecraft hasn't showed up at the event up until this point. I don't exactly know why. I wonder if maybe there's some rights issues involved with the Lovecraft stuff, but I think a lot of Lovecraft's stories are kind of in public domain, so I don't know why there would be a wall, as it were, to sort of bring his stories to life. Maybe they just, are waiting for the right time. Maybe, when they run out of ideas, they're like, oh, well, maybe we'll go back, we'll go to the Lovecraft thing. The fans want Lovecraft, we'll bring them Lovecraft. Or maybe there's just some hesitation about maybe being able to translate his works to a house. Lovecraft isn't exactly like abstract or whatever, but there's some stuff that I can see them having some issues and maybe trying to pull off and bring to life. I'm not a huge personal fan of H.P. Lovecraft. I've read some of his stuff. I've read maybe a handful of Lovecraft, so I'm not like an expert on his work. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of his. His stuff doesn't kind of grab me like it does for some other people. But I know that Lovecraft has a huge following all over the place. Cthulhu, of course, everyone knows Cthulhu. He's been, or it's been in a bunch of things, so it's not like, people know that character. I'd be willing to bet that people might know, like, they're aware of Cthulhu, but they may not know, Lovecraft, and exactly where that character comes from. I don't know. I'm just sort of speculating, being the cynical me that I am about human beings. But yeah, it is interesting. I mean, do I think that Lovecraft would ever show up? Yes, I do think that he would show up. I don't know, exactly, when, or if it's imminent. Even if it was, I wouldn't tell you anyway. Like I've said before, I know some things and the birdies talk to me a little bit, but I try not to spoil or spill the beans, as it were. I could do with another Lovecraft-inspired house, maybe something of a different nature, maybe not something with Cthulhu involved, but maybe there's another story out there somewhere. Like I said, I'm not as well versed in Lovecraft lore as some other people out there on the interwebs. So maybe I need to get on reading a lot more Lovecraft. Yeah, but I mean, like, Lovecraft would be interesting. I know that it would be, fans would be overjoyed if something Lovecraft came. But again, this Lovecraft thing comes up every year. People are always, this is going to be the year. This is going to be the year. Lovecraft is coming this year. It's going to happen this year. It's going to happen this year. It's going to happen. It never happens. It's like the Stephen King thing. Like Stephen King, like people want him to show up, and we all know that that's probably never, ever, ever going to happen. Of course, yes, we did have The Shining, but that was a loophole. They used the Stanley Kubrick version of the movie to sort of get around or circumnavigate the Stephen King thing, because we all know by now, if you're not aware, Stephen King doesn't want his stuff being used, doesn't like to lend his stuff out to stuff like haunted attractions. Although we did, of course, Warner Brothers is using, or they have used it. They used it last year. But I don't think that he was, it's a Warner Brothers property. So Warner Brothers is probably like, it's ours, we're going to use it. Who knows? It is what it is. But Lovecraft, I think, would be very interesting, and fans would love it. Fans would just love it if Lovecraft showed up at the event. There was a flurry of stuff this week, and I kind of had trying to figure out what I wanted to sort of pinpoint and talk about this week was kind of difficult, because there's something else that popped up in the rumors and speculation, and something that the little birdies might have, I might be talking to behind the scenes, not confirming or denying anything, but there was a certain property. I get asked all the time, what property do you want to see come to the event? And to be honest with you, most of the stuff that I've wanted to see come to the event has already come to the event. So there's not a whole lot of, there's not a whole lot left to mine from in terms of, what I want to see. But there is one, and it's sort of like the white whale for me, especially after the whole Disney acquisition of Fox thing. It's sort of, once that happened, I was like, well, this is never going to happen. And that is the X-Files. The X-Files is hands down my favorite television show of all time. I'm obsessed with the X-Files. I always have been. And that is something that I would love to see come to the event. I've actually written my own versions of X-Files houses for Halloween Horror Nights as recently as last year, actually. But that's a topic for a whole other video. But that was something that I wanted. It was tough for me to pinpoint what I really wanted to talk about. And I'm kind of rushing through this. I'm shooting this the night before because Sunday is the Oscars. And I have a huge Oscar party, so I'm going, or not a huge Oscar party. What the fuck? This guy. I have an Oscar party, so I'm going to be a little bit busy during the day, and I won't be able to actually do a video on Sunday. So it's like I have to do all this stuff the night before, and I'm still sort of playing around with the setup and stuff that I'm shooting on, and that's going to take me some time to edit and, all that other fancy nonsense. So I think that does it for this week, because I don't want to get too much onto the X-Files thing. But yeah, so Lovecraft, who knows? Like I said, it's a property that people wanted to come for a long time. If it does come, cool. If not, I won't be sad about it, because I'm not the biggest Lovecraft fan in the world. But anyway, guys, that is it for me this week. And I will talk to you next week.